Imagine waking up to a headline saying the United States almost nuked itself. Not Russia, not China, not any foreign enemy. America nearly blew up its own coastline and then pretended everything was fine. That's what happened on February 5, 1958, the night the U.S. Air Force dropped a 7,600-pound Mark 15 hydrogen bomb into the waters off Tybee Island, Georgia. The thing wasn't a toy. It wasn't a practice dummy. It was a thermonuclear weapon capable of wiping out a city, and for decades, nobody knew the full truth about what really happened or what was inside the bomb when it slipped under the muddy water and vanished forever. This is the story of the broken arrow the Pentagon wished would disappear, because nothing hits harder than realizing your own country almost destroyed itself by accident. On February 5, 1958, the night the U.S. Air Force dropped a 7,600-pound Mark 15 hydrogen bomb into the waters off Tybee Island, Georgia. The thing wasn't a toy. It wasn't a practice dummy. It was a thermonuclear weapon capable of wiping out a city, and for decades, nobody knew the full truth about what really happened or what was inside the bomb when it slipped under the muddy water and vanished forever. To feel how insane this is, you gotta understand the Cold War mindset. Back then, the US and the Soviet Union were basically standing in a room full of gasoline-holding flamethrowers, daring each other to blink. American bombers carried nukes in the air constantly so they could hit Moscow at a moment's notice. It was like the nation was walking around with a loaded shotgun pointed at its own chest. On that February night, a B-47 bomber was cruising on one of those routine nuclear alert missions. Inside was a Mark 15 hydrogen bomb, massive, deadly, and armed with high explosives and, as later documents suggest, potentially a full plutonium core. The mission was going smooth until a nearby F-86 fighter jet came in for a radar intercept training pass. The pilot of that fighter misjudged the distance, clipped the bomber's wing, and slammed into it with brutal force. The bomber shook so violently the crew thought the plane was about to split in half. Warning alarms went berserk, engines choked, and everything inside the cockpit turned into chaos. The bomber started dropping altitude fast, dragging the weight of that hydrogen bomb with it. The crew realized that if the plane hit the ground, the high explosives inside the bomb could detonate, possibly triggering a catastrophic nuclear event. In seconds, the pilot had to make a decision no human should ever make: crash and gamble that the bomb doesn't go off, or drop it into the water and pray it doesn't explode on impact. He chose to dump the bomb. The crew released the Mark 15 into the nighttime darkness over the marshes near Tybee Island. The bomb fell silently and disappeared into the deep, muddy water. The bomber barely made it back to base, and somehow, the entire crew survived. But now the United States had a nuclear weapon missing on American soil, somewhere under the Georgia coastline. At dawn, the Air Force stormed the area with helicopters, boats, divers, and Geiger counters. They tried to keep locals calm, claiming it was a training search. But everyone knew something was off. People don't bring radiation detectors for training. They searched for weeks. Sonar sweeps, underwater digs, radiation scans. Every day the story grew stranger. The bomb was nowhere. The water swallowed it like a secret. And then, suddenly, the government changed the story. The Air Force announced the bomb wasn't dangerous because it didn't contain a nuclear core. They claimed it was just a shell with explosives. Case closed. Search called off. But years later, declassified documents proved that narrative wasn't true. The bomb may have been fully nuclear after all. The real confrontation didn't happen in the air that night, it happened afterward, between the truth and the US government's attempt to control the story. Losing a nuke on your own soil isn't just embarrassing, it's globally dangerous. If the world knew the US misplaced a hydrogen bomb, it would undermine America's image as the most responsible nuclear power on Earth. So the military leaned hard into the harmless bomb narrative. They insisted the missing nuke was incomplete, missing its core, and posed no threat. But their actions didn't match their words. Locals reported military teams returning to the area quietly for years, sometimes late at night, carrying equipment designed to measure radiation levels. Scientists warned that if the bomb was complete, corrosion could eventually cause dangerous leaks. Fishermen reported abnormal Geiger counter readings near specific channels. Yet every time someone detected something strange, the military appeared quickly and then shut everything down. It was like the government wasn't just hiding a bomb, they were hiding that they were still worried about the bomb. Meanwhile, the crew members who survived the near crash carried the weight of the incident for the rest of their lives. The pilot, Colonel Richardson, was often asked whether the bomb was nuclear or not. He never gave a direct answer. Instead, he'd say things like, "It's safer where it is." That's not the kind of thing you say about a harmless object. He admitted he believed the bomb sank deep into the mud, wedged so tightly it was nearly impossible to disturb. But he also admitted it was best left alone, another hint that this wasn't some empty shell. As the decades passed, treasure hunters, divers, researchers, and conspiracy theorists descended on Tybee Island. Some claimed they detected radiation spikes. Others swore they touched something metallic and massive buried under the mud. Some divers said the military chased them off when they got too close. But nobody ever produced the bomb. The swamp kept its mouth shut, like it was guarding the secret on purpose. The government kept insisting everything was safe, even as new reports kept surfacing suggesting otherwise. By the 90s and early 2000s, the Tybee bomb had become a legend, America's lost nuke. People debated whether it was a dormant time bomb or a harmless relic. Scientists argued on TV. News channels ran sensational specials. Locals argued at bars. But behind all that noise, one truth stood out: nobody really knew where the bomb was or what condition it was in. The confrontation wasn't between armies, it was between America's past mistakes and the present-day people demanding answers. Then came the twist: the info the government didn't want getting out. In 2001, researchers uncovered a previously classified 1966 report. It confirmed two explosive truths: the bomb was complete, and the Air Force labeled it irrecoverable. They never intended to retrieve it. Not because they didn't care, but because trying to recover it might actually set it off. The water pressure, the unstable mud, the shifting currents, all of it meant the bomb could detonate if moved. That's why the search stopped so abruptly. Not because the bomb was harmless, but because trying to recover it was even more dangerous. Scientists say the bomb's casing could be corroding as we speak. If the metal collapses, plutonium could leak into the water. It wouldn't cause a nuclear explosion, but it could poison marine life and contaminate a large portion of the coastline. That's why the military still monitors the area quietly. Every few years, someone detects radiation spikes, and the Navy or Air Force suddenly shows up. Then they disappear, leaving only more questions. The last serious search happened in 2004. A private researcher claimed he found radiation levels matching those used in nuclear detonators. Media went crazy, locals panicked, and suddenly the Navy moved in to investigate. Within a week, they shut the whole thing down and declared it a false alarm. But the people who took those readings still insist they found something real, something the military didn't want uncovered. Here's the moral that hits like a gut punch: sometimes America's biggest enemy isn't a foreign power, it's its own mistakes. The Tybee bomb is a reminder that even the strongest nation on Earth can be brought to its knees by one bad moment, one miscalculation, one accident. This wasn't a Soviet attack. It wasn't terrorism. It was a collision between two American planes during practice. And that single mistake created a threat that still sits at the bottom of Georgia's water, slowly rusting. The story of the lost nuke isn't about blame, it's about responsibility. Weapons powerful enough to erase cities shouldn't vanish under the mud. Secrets like this shouldn't stay buried for decades. And pretending everything is fine doesn't make the danger go away. The bomb may never be found. It may never explode. It might sit in the mud until it dissolves into nothing. Or it might leak. Or someone might uncover it for real. The truth is, nobody knows. And that uncertainty is the real warning. America didn't need an enemy to almost destroy itself. It almost did it alone. The day the US nuked itself wasn't the day the bomb dropped, it was the day the truth got buried. If this story blew your mind, hit like, smash subscribe, and drop a comment with the next insane war story you want covered. This channel digs up the truths they don't teach in school, the secrets buried deep, and the stories the world tried to forget. Thanks for watching, stay sharp, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.